Arturo Alfonso Schomburg, sometimes called Arthur, was Afro-Latino, and he was a staunch LGBTQ ally. He was a historian, writer, researcher, and curator. He amassed a personal collection relating to Black history and the African diaspora. Arturo was also a part of the Harlem Renaissance and a supporter of the independence for his native Puerto Rico. He's an incredible guy, and his story is absolutely fascinating. You're going to love this. Arturo's materials served as a foundation for a collection that today has expanded to more than 10 million items. Both scholars and the public have access to these materials, as well as exhibitions, lectures, and discussions organized by the Schomburg Center. His mother, Maria Josefa, was a free Black woman from St. Croix in the Danish islands, which is now the U.S. Virgin Islands. His father, Carlos Federico Schomburg, was a Puerto Rican of German descent. Arturo was born in Aquarius on January 24th, 1874. He was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, where he grew up. As a schoolboy, he remembered a teacher telling him that there were no notable people of African descent and that Black history held no achievements. This sparked in him what would become his lifelong interest in collecting materials about the Black experience around the world. He went on to become a student at San Juan's Instituto Popular and studied Negro literature at St. Thomas College in the Danish Virgin Islands. At the age of 17, he moved to New York City. Over the next few years, his jobs included elevator operator, bellhop, messenger, and printer. At night, he took classes at Manhattan Central High. As a young man, Arturo was an active supporter of Cuban and Puerto Rican independence, co-founding the Club Las Dos Antillas, a political club that supported Cuban and Puerto Rican independence. He was initiated into the Freemasons in 1892. When he became a Freemason, he joined a Spanish-speaking lodge in New York. At the end of the Spanish-American War in 1898, Spain ceded Puerto Rico to the United States. Following this, the Puerto Rican independence movement lost momentum and Arturo's political club disbanded. Arturo was a collector of books and manuscripts pertaining to Black history and culture. He spent much of his life acquiring books, documents, pamphlets, artwork, and more tied to Africans' diaspora in the Americas and Europe. His aim was, quote, to preserve the historical records of the race, arouse race consciousness and race pride, inspire art students, and give information to everyone about the Negro, end quote. After moving to New York, he settled in Harlem and later Brooklyn. His research consisted of going to rare bookstores, contacting book dealers in Europe, and reaching out to people across the United States. He asked a correspondent in Detroit to search used furniture stores in Black neighborhoods, saying, "You're bound to pick up rarities like letters from Frederick Douglass." In 1904, he published his first known article, "Is Haiti Decadent?" in the Unique Advertiser. Now, much of Arturo's collecting was done around his job at the Bankers Trust Company, where he was employed from 1906 to 1929. He became supervisor of the Caribbean and Latin American mail section, thanks largely in part to his ability to write in English, Espanol, and Francais. While at work, he was able to send out letters regarding his quest for artifacts. Throughout 1926, Arturo accumulated more than 10,000 items, demonstrating the breadth of Black and African achievements. These included slave narratives, poems by Phyllis Wheatley, correspondence from none other than Toussaint Louverture, and music composed by Chevalier de Saint-Georges. Arturo also researched the African antecedents of people like John James Audubon and Ludwig van Beethoven. During the Harlem Renaissance, Zora Neale Hurston and others used Arturo's materials. He was involved in several organizations devoted to promoting African American research and scholarship. He also founded the Negro Society for Historical Research in 1911. He joined the American Negro Academy and served as its president from 1920 to 1928. Arturo also wrote for Black periodicals, including The Crisis, Opportunity, and the New York Amsterdam News. His famous essay, The Negro Digs Up His Past, was published in Survey Graphic magazine in 1925. And in that same year, it was in Alan Locke's anthology, The New Negro. Arturo wrote a short pamphlet, Placido, a Cuban martyr, about the poet and independence fighter Gabriel de la Concepcion Valdez. In 1918, he was elected Grand Secretary of New York State Grand Lodge of the Prince Hall Masons. In 1926, the New York Public Library purchased his collection of books, manuscripts, and prints with a $10,000 grant from the Carnegie Corporation. Everything was transferred and became the starting point for today's Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. That same year, 1926, he also traveled to Spain, France, Germany, and England with funds from the sale of his collection to conduct research and acquire new books and material. He was awarded the William E. Harmon Award, consisting of a bronze medal and $100 for outstanding work in the field of education. He became the curator of the Negro collection at Fisk University in Nashville. He greatly expanded that university's holdings. In 1932, he traveled to Cuba, where he met black Cuban artists and writers and acquired material for the collection. Arturo left Nashville and returned to New York City. He then became curator of the Schomburg collection of Negro literature, art, history, and prints, 135th Street branch of the New York Public Library in Harlem. This was a man who lived in the days of Ernest Hemingway and Madam C.J. Walker. He died on June 10th, 1938, in Brooklyn, at the age of 64. He was buried in Cypress Hills Cemetery in Brooklyn. In 1972, the research library, with his collection, was renamed the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, and the Schomburg Center moved into a new building in 1980. Arturo wrote research on African influences in Central American civilization, Central American history up to 1821, African influences in Egyptian civilization, Latin America and Spain's history from the years 711 to 1516. So what was his love life like? Well, he married his first wife, Elizabeth Hatcher, in 1895. She was from Staunton, Virginia. They had 3 children, Maximo Gomez, Arturo Alfonso Jr., and Kingsley Garrionex. Bang, that's a bad name. Elizabeth died in 1900. He then married his second wife, Elizabeth Morrow Taylor, in 1902. They had 2 sons together, Reginald Stanfield and Nathaniel Jose. Elizabeth passed away in 1914, and in that same year, Arturo got married for the third and last time to Elizabeth Green. Blimey, all his wives were named Elizabeth. That is mad. I don't think any monarch in history has even managed that. So Arturo and Elizabeth III had 3 children, Fernando Alfonso, Dolores Maria, and Carlos Placido. Here are some famous quotes of his. The American Negro must remake his past in order to make his future. What of it, if the darker races are getting consciousness? Isn't the world large enough for the people of all bloods to dwell therein? History must restore what slavery took away. Absolutely. You can view the Arthur Alfonso Schomburg papers, a collection from 1724 to 1938, and these reflect his activities as a researcher and writer, collector, and curator. The collection consists of correspondence, published and unpublished writings, articles about him and his collection, newspaper clippings, that sort of thing, and material relating to his many speaking engagements and activities in the community. The materials dating from the 18th and 19th century consist of translations and transcriptions of historical documents made during the 1930s. This was a very important era for Black history, particularly at a time when whitewashing was rampant. So this is so valuable. It's so valuable that his work has survived. The correspondence also includes private letters. Get this. Arturo's correspondence included a number of prominent people in the fields of art, politics, and civil rights, including John E. Bruce, Henrietta Buckmaster, W.E.B. Du Bois, W.C. Handy, Langston Hughes, who was also gay, Claude McKay, J.A. Rogers, the Honorable Stanio Vincent, President of Haiti, Walter White, Carter G. Woodson, he was a prolific inventor. I think he invented like the fridge or something. Charles S. Johnson, Nancy Cunard, Albert Smith, fellow collectors and bibliophiles, William C. Bolivar, Henry Slaughter, and Arthur Spingarn. The letters relate to Arturo's role as curator at the library in Harlem, as well as his intellectual interests and personal life. Now, you can view this collection by appointment only, no walk-ins, at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, Manuscripts, Archives, and Rare Books Division, 515 Malcolm X Boulevard, New York, 2nd floor.